Hi, I'm Jen, and you're listening to the Shadow Sanctuary, where I dig into the history of haunted locations to try and find a correlation between historical fact and paranormal experience. Is there a reason for the haunting? Why does energy stay? Keep listening to find out more. Welcome to the Shadow Sanctuary. I'm your host, Jen. Happy Independence Day. I hope all of you are being safe if you're celebrating. Tonight, I'm going to be telling you about the Monte Vista Hotel in Flagstaff, Arizona. So, let's get into it. The Sinagua people were a pre Columbian culture that occupied a large area in Arizona from near Flagstaff to Sedona. The Sinagua peoples left the area by the early 15th century. The Yavapai people arrived and began developing independently around 1300 AC until Western expansion in the 1860s. The Yavapai occupied the land. The area of Flagstaff had a wagon road to California in the 1800s. The first non native settlement in the area was established by Edward Whipple, who opened a saloon on the wagon road in 1871. The first permanent settlement came in 1876 when Thomas F. McMillan built a cabin just north of town. The city of Flagstaff was founded on July 4th, 1876, literally 149 years ago today. A Ponderosa pine flagpole was raised to celebrate the United States centennial, and this flag raising gave the city its name. The Atlantic and Pacific Railroad was built through the area in 1882. During the 1880s, Flagstaff began to grow with the early economy built on timber, sheep, and cattle. By 1886, Flagstaff was the largest city between Albuquerque and the West Coast. In 1888, Thomas McMillan purchased the building and turned it into the bank and hotel. The next year, stagecoach tours to the Grand Canyon began running from the Bank Hotel, which also housed an opera house and an entertainment hall. In 1894, Lowell Observatory was constructed on Mars Hill, overlooking the town of Flagstaff. Flagstaff became incorporated in 1894. The city grew rapidly. By the 1890s, Flagstaff found itself along one of the busiest railroad corridors in the United States. In this decade, the Arizona Lumber and Timber Company was founded to process timber, and electricity was introduced to Flagstaff. Cobar Ranch was opened in 1886 for cattle. The Northern Arizona Normal School was established in 1899, now known as Northern Arizona University. The state of Arizona was admitted to the Union in 1912. Flagstaff saw its first tourism boom in the early 1900s, becoming known as the City of Seven Wonders. Route 66 was completed in 1926 with a section through Flagstaff. Seeing a rise in tourism, the Hotel Monte Vista was built in 1927 and is in the historic downtown district of Flagstaff. The hotel has 73 rooms and suites on 3 floors. Mary Costigan was the second woman in the world to be granted a radio broadcasting license in 1927. Mary set up her own radio station, KFXY, which in 1929 she operated out of the Monte Vista Hotel. A system of underground tunnels built by Chinese immigrants run from NAU through downtown Flagstaff. Businesses, including the Monte Vista, have access to these tunnels. In the early 1900s, a devastating fire damaged many buildings in downtown Flagstaff. Chinese immigrant workers were blamed for the fire because of their cooking and cleaning practices. After that, the Chinese began to use the tunnels to get around the city without being harassed. At one point, the tunnels were used as opium dens, moonshine distilleries, and gambling halls. The tunnels are now used for piping and storage. The cocktail lounge in the Monte Vista opened during Prohibition under the guise of a newspaper publishing house. It was actually a speakeasy. It was forced to shut down in 1931 but reopened in 1933 after Prohibition. A light on top of the hotel served as an emergency signal for the Flagstaff town in the 1930s. Famous guests to Monte Vista include Mary Costigan, Bob Hope, Michael Stipe, Zane Grey, Bing Crosby, Michael J. Fox, and Esther Williams. Famous ghost stories of the Monte Vista: the Meat Man in room 220. This bizarre long-term boarder was known by his strange habit of hanging raw meat from the chandelier. In the early 1980s, the lodger was found 3 days after his death. Not long after his death, a maintenance worker was in the room making a few repairs. He needed a new fixture, so he turned out the lights, locked the door, and left the room. Returning a few minutes later, he found the television on at full volume and the linens on the bed had been ripped and scattered around the room. It is common for the TV to act on its own accord and for cold male hands to touch guests in their sleep in this room. Popular in paranormal shows, room 305 is the most active room in the hotel. People see a woman in a rocking chair by the window. The chair moves by itself, and knocking comes from inside the closet. Years ago, an elderly woman who was a long term renter at the hotel would sit by the window for hours on end. Nobody knows what she was looking for. Years ago, Flagstaff's red light district could be found just south of the railroad tracks, 2 blocks from the Monte Vista. In the early 1940s, two prostitutes were brought to room 306. They were killed and thrown from the third floor window. Guests have reported being awakened in the middle of the night and unable to go back to sleep due to a feeling of being watched. Male guests report feeling hands over their mouths and throats and being unable to breathe. The disturbing sounds of an infant crying in the basement have been heard, usually reported by maintenance and laundry personnel. Lounge staff and patrons have witnessed a transparent couple dancing in the cocktail lounge and they are formally dressed. Hotel guests have reported hearing a knock at their door and a muffled voice announcing room service. When they open the door, no one is there. However, some guests have seen the figure of a bellboy standing outside of room 210. In 1970, 3 men robbed a nearby bank. During the robbery, the bank guard shot one of the men. Despite this, the robbers stopped by the lounge in the Monte Vista to have a drink. The wounded man bled to death in the lounge. Patrons and staff report being greeted with a phantom "Good morning." Bar stools and drinks also move on their own accord. The Hotel Monte Vista is located at 100 North San Francisco Street, Flagstaff, Arizona. They're open to guests. If you pay them a visit, let them know the Shadow Sanctuary podcast sent you. Hey, before you take off, I believe in supporting my friends and fellow content creators. That is why I am sending you to Twitch to check out Valengo and their content. Give them a follow. The link to Valengo can be found on our website and Facebook page, the Shadow Sanctuary Podcast. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to check us out on Facebook for more information on upcoming episodes. As always, don't let the eerie vibes fade too quickly. Stay haunted, my friends.